Thank you for tuning in to Crafting with Daisy. For this video, I'm going to show you how to make a hot pad. For starters, I will list the supplies. I have a crochet hook, the yarn, and a pair of scissors. Now the yarn that I have is Peaches and Cream. It is a solid cotton yarn that is perfect to withstand heat. I purchased this cone at my local Walmart. I'm not sure of any other place that sells it, but I'm sure there are others. This color in particular is Happy Go Lucky. Now before we start crocheting, I do want to say that this video is meant as a beginner project. In fact, I believe this can be a first project for beginners. However, as someone who remembers learning how to crochet, starting a project can be the most difficult part. So before we get started on actually putting the hook to the yarn, I recommend learning how to hold your yarn first. While that may sound silly, having proper tension on the yarn will help you complete the project. In fact, it will help when you are dealing with trying to learn the stitches themselves. If your tension is correct, it will make everything else much easier. So you want to start by locating the end. This is assuming that you are right-handed. I have not necessarily tried to do this left-handed. This is assuming that you will crochet using your right hand. So I'm going to hold the yarn in the left hand. You're going to hold the end of the yarn in your right hand. Then you're going to take your hand, going to take your pinky and wrap it around your pinky clockwise. The yarn should be going around your pinky clockwise. Then you're going to slide your hand down the yarn to get some slack. Then you're going to turn your hand from the palm facing you to your palm facing away from you. Push your first finger down and wrap the yarn around your first finger clockwise, and then you're going to want to pinch the yarn with your thumb and your second finger. If you're not pinching too tightly, we'll slide through, but it's not so loose that you have no control over it. Now, when you go to start your project, or any project, you're going to want to start by creating a slip knot. So for this, you're going to pinch with your index finger and your thumb, wrap the yarn around counterclockwise. Then you're going to stick your other hand, your two fingers, pinch the strand of yarn and pull it through. Remove your fingers, still hold on to the end, and pull in both directions. Now that is kind of large, but still you're going to want to stick it onto your hook, hold in place, and pull the large strand of yarn. Notice it pulls all of the slack out of your slip knot. Now you are going to want to hold your yarn using the appropriate technique. You're going to want to pinch at the bottom of your project. Technically, you're going to want to pinch under the current stitch or stitches that you're working on, and for now that is just a slip knot. So once you have the slip knot on your hook and your yarn properly wrapped around your hand, you can begin crocheting. To start any crochet project, you're going to need to create a chain. A chain is basically a series of loops that are used as a foundation for your project. To create your first chain, you're going to want to take your hook and put it under the yarn so that you are wrapping your yarn around clockwise. But you're going to want to be moving the hook and not the yarn. You are then going to want to get the yarn hooked and pull it through. You have just chained one. Anywhere in a project where it tells you to chain one, that's all you're doing. That is the first chain. Again, you're going to want to move the hook so that you put it under your yarn, wrap it around to where the yarn is wrapping clockwise, and pull it through. Once again, move the hook such that the yarn is wrapping clockwise and pull through. For this project, I have chained 11 because I want my project to be 10 stitches wide, but you have to use your first chain for your first stitch. So to begin your project, you're going to want to go to the second chain from your hook. That would be the first, and that would be the second. And you're going to want to insert your hook into the top loop of that second chain. You are then going to want to do the same thing as a chain. Wrap your yarn around the hook clockwise, but only pull through the first loop. You should have 2 loops remaining on your hook. You're then going to want to do the same thing, wrap your yarn around, and this time pull through both loops. That is how you do a single crochet. Again, insert your hook into the top loop, wrap your yarn around clockwise, pull the yarn through the first loop, same thing, wrap your yarn around clockwise, and pull through both loops. Notice how I'm getting some height on this project. Most projects are going to want single crochet, double crochet, or both. For this project, I'm solely using single crochet to make it easiest for beginners. Again, insert through the top loop, wrap your yarn around clockwise, pull the yarn through the first loop, and pull through both loops. Now that I have reached the end, I'm going to go around. Most projects are going to want you to turn the project. If they tell you to turn, that literally means you turn the project around and begin doing your crochet stitches. However, this is going to be done in the round, so we're not going to turn the pattern. Instead, we're going to insert the hook where we just inserted it last time to create a stitch right there. We're going to make a second stitch, but it is technically for the bottom side. And we're doing the same thing, just doing a single crochet. Now that we're starting on the bottom half, you're going to want to insert your hook through what is now the top loop, wrap your yarn around, pull through the first loop, wrap yarn around again, and pull through both loops. You're going to repeat until you make it to the end. I'm 1 stitch from the end, and as you can see, that would be the top loop. However, if I do that, this little loop stays there, and it's pretty obvious. So in my opinion, I think it is prettier to instead go through that loop and that one. So you would kind of pull that one up and go through both of those at the same time. If that's too difficult to figure out, it's not going to be that obvious to most people, but I figured I'd give a cosmetic tip for this project. As you can see, we've made it all the way around. For the second and continuing rows, you're going to want to insert your hook through the stitch, which would be 2 loops. You are no longer just inserting through a front loop. You're actually going to go through both of the loops because that is the whole stitch. So you're going to insert your hook through both loops, wrap your yarn around clockwise again, pull through both of those loops. You still have 2 loops remaining, and pull through both of those, making another single crochet. And you're going to repeat this process all the way through. Just remember to go through both loops. Obviously, I'm not done yet, but as you can see, the project is starting to kind of fold in, almost like a shoe or something. That is normal. You're just going to want to keep going. In fact, you're going to want to keep going until these two ends meet in the middle. I'm going to get that stitch out of the way. So as you can see, that is meeting on this end, but it's not quite meeting here. So I'm going to finish that section and bring it to this end. And as you can see, I've made it to the end. It is meeting, so I am now going to close it off. There are multiple ways you can finish up a crochet project. You could cut the yarn and sew it together and then feed the yarn back through. Or you can technically crochet it together or kind of crochet sew it. I think either one would be fine. If you already know how to sew something together, you could easily do that. Or you can do it the crochet method. So I am going to show the crochet method. However, first I will say, if you wanted to sew it, you would want to cut the yarn about at least double, but about double the length of what you're trying to sew. So probably about here. And then you're going to want to feed it through the loop and pull it tight. However, if you're going to do it by crocheting it, I would recommend doing slip stitches across. So you're going to want to do a slip stitch and the stitch across, but because the corners are so tight, I'm actually going to skip a few stitches. So if you were to do another single crochet, that would be your next stitch. But we're going to skip that one. The next one would be right there. And I'm going to skip that one as well. I'm going to skip 2. I'm going to instead go into that third one from where I was. Again, wrap your yarn around clockwise, pull it through both of those loops, and then pull that loop through the last one. You're not going to wrap your yarn around the needle again. Then you're going to want to go back to the side you were on, in this case the right side, go into what would have been the next one over there, go into those first 2 loops, go into the one next to the one you just went into, same thing, wrap your yarn around, pull through, and take that same loop, pull through, and you have another loop. So pull through. You're just going to pull through all of your loops. Again, the next 2, this is kind of what you would be doing if you were sewing it. You would be wanting to feed your yarn through the stitches like this, so it's kind of doing the same thing. But this way you don't have to like get out a needle and do all of that. You're going to want to continue this all the way across. You've made it across. Again, we're not going to be able to do those last 2 stitches because it's just too tight. And to finish the project, you're going to want to cut your yarn. And this would also be if you wanted to sew it. This is how it would look. You would cut the yarn, feed it through the loop, and just pull tight. Pull everything tight, and that makes a little knot. Then you would just sew the yarn through like you would do on this end, or you can use your crochet hook. I normally knit more than I crochet, so I'm normally using a needle, but if you just kind of come back here into your project a little bit, and then just wrap the yarn around and kind of pull through like that. Notice it comes through the project, and then you can cut the yarn. I would recommend kind of pulling the slack out and then cutting it kind of close so that when you release the project, it hides itself into the project. And I'll show you with the end of the yarn from the beginning of the project. Show you what that one would look like. Just Just kind of give you a second example. Yeah, see, it's a little bit harder to crochet when you don't have your tension, and it's kind of short. Again, kind of flatten it out, pull a little bit of it out, cut the yarn short, and pull it through. And there you have a hot pad. Now, obviously, this is tiny. However, when we did our chain, and we chained 11, of course, it was meant to be 10 plus 1, that is this distance right here. It's going to be that. So that is meant to make a square. I'm not 100% sure this was exactly a square because it was so tiny. I don't know if I got my rounds quite correct. I'm not going to lie. But again, this was just a little sample. But that is going to be the measurement you're looking for. So however big you're wanting to make it, honestly, just keep doing a chain until you like how big it looks. And then just, add one to start your single crochets. So this can be made in any size. That is how you make these little hot pads. And thank you for tuning into Crafting with Daisy. And I hope this helps you as a beginner project. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below and I will make a point to answer all the questions. Please stay tuned for more videos. I do plan to add videos on supplies. I just couldn't find all my hooks. And more little tips and tricks on how to craft, whether it's knitting or crocheting. I'm hoping to do more sewing videos and such, so please stay tuned as I get more videos out, and I hope this helps. I actually made this video with the thought in mind of someone who has never crocheted before. I'm hoping I explained everything you would need to know all in one video. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.